and we're ready to go. So, good evening, everybody. Thank you all so very much for joining us tonight for our normal ROV board update. So, not only am I here tonight, I am joined by our board member, Dr. Gabriela Lemus. And one of the things we are going to be able to talk about is the incredible um, turn of the tide for democracy, as it were. So on Tuesday, democracy took a positive spin. On Wednesday, democracy almost fell off the desk. So we are going to be talking about all of that. So what I'm going to do is share my screen and actually get to our very first slide and say again, welcome. I'm Andrea Miller. I'm with Center for Common Ground. We are Virginia-based 501c3, and we have a very, very simple mission, which so many of you on this Zoom tonight really helped achieve, and that is to empower underrepresented voters. And we do that through a number of different campaigns. And you'll notice there is now a fourth campaign that's listed. So all of us were working in 2020 and up until January 5th on the Reclaim Our Vote campaign. There are some of us that work on the Let Me Vote, Count My Vote campaign, where we work on election integrity, election transparency. We have a new project that we are launching, the Democracy Center project. So every time I do one of these, I'm going to give you a little bit of an update on where we are with our Democracy Center project. We did actually open our very first one in Hawkinsville, Georgia, vote equality. And as a lot of people know, we are also a technology company. So for 2020, we invented a lot of tools for the election. Now, it's not going to be just me tonight. So there's going to be other folks that will be speaking with you. So I'm going to do the welcome, and then I've got a number of thank yous, what we accomplished. Gabby's going to have a comment on what's going on DC. Reverend Terrence Dix is here. He is with the Richmond County Board of Elections. He's going to give us a little bit of Georgia commentary. Hopefully Ray McClendon will be able to join us, and then I will close us out with the Democracy Centers and begin to give you a taste of where we're going. So I'm going to go through this fast, and it's a lot. Thank you to our partners and our volunteers. The Religious Action Center on Reform Judaism, UU the Vote, American Ethical Union, Students for Justice, the Workers' Circle, Indivisible in all its shapes and forms from all the various cities, Black Voters Matter, Swing Left, National Voter Corps, Atlanta NAACP, Sister District, our 44,000 volunteers, the notorious RVG team. They are here tonight. They got back from Georgia early this morning. Serge Marin. When we were in Georgia, this is the final billboard for Election Day. And there were 17 of these. So they went from Atlanta down through middle Georgia down to Savannah. And this is what the billboard said. And apparently they helped. Gabe, unmute, and I want you to walk people through what happened with the phone banks. In case you hadn't figured out, we won.
What the hell happened to the phone banks? Well, as you can see with these nice pie charts made with a generic pie chart maker, we made 119,000, let's round it up to 120,000 registration calls after November 3rd, and 238,000 get out the vote calls. And this is, this really blew the whole phone bank team away, because we were anticipating a lot of people dropping off after November 3rd. And this crew of volunteers, this coalition that Andrea and everyone has built together, is so impressive in their ability to just follow through and keep chugging along. And we hope that you continue to chug along with us as we move forward and shift into different things. But just wanted to give a shout out to you, the vote, also for making 26,000 calls. That is, in all of those numbers, if you recognize your name on the list of partners, volunteer groups, those are all underestimates, because those are only the calls made when the volunteers remembered to tag their organization. So this doesn't include all the other times when they didn't. But this is just a fun little visualization of how impactful all of these separate groups were. And the grand total of 358,000 total calls. I also wanted to give a shout out to Justin for helping to compile this data, tirelessly making every little spreadsheet and stuff so that people like me can make fun pie charts, do the fun part of the job. Yeah, and was there another slide, Andrea?
Yeah, there is. Their phone banking team.
Oh, cool. Yeah. There was another picture that I had. Anyway, I wanted to announce that on Callapalooza Sunday of Callapalooza, that was the day when the phone bank team did not host a Zoom and instead left it up to the 14 or 15 separate Zoom rooms that were all hosted by volunteer organizations. And on Sunday, the total number of calls made was 26,458 by Reclaim Our Vote. And that is all of you, everyone who has been hosting a regular event every week, training with your group and just taking on more and more people. This is all you. So just wanted to give a huge thank you to all the groups, all the volunteer groups that have been consistently recruiting new people and consistently training them. So thank you.
And then I want to give a huge shout out to our entire phone bank team. So we've got Gabe, who is setting up the phone banks, who is primarily on tech. We've got Justin, who is doing reporting. And then we've got our wonderful array of people that are our script writers and our script reviewers, and the wonderful people when we do these incredible trainings. And there were trainings on Monday, and I believe on Friday or Saturday, there were at least trainings 2 days a week. And then the team of trainers that was always present in the trainings. And then also all the people who, when they signed on to Callapalooza, you could tell who's support, who's the trainer if you needed help. So we're going to post this PowerPoint in Slack. So I'm not going to read each and every name, but what I am going to say is a huge thank you from me personally, from the great state of Georgia. Thank you so very much for the amazing work that you did. And the other thing that I think is really, really critical to know, this team and the Georgia runoff was the very first election where I did not set up a single phone bank or write a single script. So I am delighted to see the organization come of age. So thank you. Oh, and then I'll just do this one really quickly. This is our total numbers for the 2020 election. Now, our runoff, that was really part of the 2020 election. So we are looking at a total of 587,146 46 calls into Georgia, which bumped our total phone calls up to 1,740,223. We are awesome. I am basking in the light of our total awesomeness. And I need to thank our texters who worked so hard in Georgia, and then also the Students for Justice who really helped Josie, my executive assistant, load all of those early voting centers and load all of the drop boxes so that all of our lookup tools can work. So very special thank you to Catherine and Judith who took on training and support of Text%. I promise you in 2021, we will write an actual back end for Text%. But again, I tell people for a program that was announced on a Friday and then actually showed up fully functional on Monday, it wasn't half bad. Now, texting, we sent 2,918,374 texts. We would have sent more, but the Georgia telephone companies started blocking our text, even though we bought 20 numbers. And we thought, since they're not letting the text go through, let's just concentrate on the phones. So we know that the next time we do races, as long as the entire world isn't texting the same people in one state, we'll be able to do just fine. I need to thank our incredible group of postcard distributors. And there's a couple of folks I want to recognize especially. Gloria Beeler, who worked with Carrie Wheaton, getting this set up and organized from the very beginning, and Jack Ziegler. Special shout out to Bob Haar and his army of volunteers all across the country, to Athena, who helped her mom put together our postcard training video, to folks like Roxanne and she's on the phone bank side, Roxanne, who in addition to distributing all the postcards, who actually held a rally for Reclaim Our Vote. Thank you. And to the man where I just didn't understand how one person managed to do it all, Brian Kramer, our lead postcard distributor, who probably distributed 6 or 7 million of our 9 million postcards that we sent for the 2020 election. While we may not have won in all of our states, we made a difference. And we'll be back in 2022. We sent PPE because Georgia was like pandemic or no pandemic. We got to go knock on doors. So we sent PPE. I mentioned the Students for Justice organized and loaded the data for the Dropbox app. We created a little app where you could put in the name of your county and then you could find all the drop boxes. Huge shout out to the RVG team who went back to Georgia 3 times during the runoffs. Actually, I think it was 4 times they traveled to Georgia in our big purple and turquoise RV. They are home in Virginia tonight. So welcome, RVG team, Christiane, the driver, Lorna, and Jen. Thank you so very much for everything that you did. People in Georgia loved that RV. Now, I am going to stop the share right now. And Gabby, If you are living on planet Earth, there is no way you could have missed what has been going on in DC
Mm.
as of yesterday. So, Gabby, please take it away and make our official statement about the episodic insanity, violence, insurrection, attempted coup that was going on in Washington, D.C. yesterday.
I don't know if I should say thank you or run out the door. But thank you. And thanks to you, all of you volunteers and staff, and Andrea. I know for a fact that Georgia would be different if you all hadn't done everything you did. Um, I'm just honored to even be a part of this team, and that Andrea believes in my, that somehow I'm contributing something to everything here that you're doing. So DC and yesterday, yeah, the last 20 years of my life, I have walked those halls of Congress at least once or twice a week, if not more. And I'll just share with you on a personal level. I was very upset because it was personal. I know a lot of those folks, and you too, Andrea. You and I both worked with them for a long time. They're not perfect, but they're our representatives, and they were elected. And yesterday was terrifying. And whatever side you were on, I think they were all scared. I think the ones who thought they were in charge realized they unleashed a monster. Do they regret it? Meh, it's not up for me to say that, but I think some of them may have paused at least for 20 seconds before moving forward, which means what I'm trying to get to, though, is that we're really in a very difficult situation, because it's not going to end with Donald Trump leaving. Sadly, I think what we are seeing, or what we saw, is the culmination of 4 years of constantly being incited. Yes, but the problem is way deeper. It's much, much deeper, and it's been going on for many years. And I think what the president and his team did was to bring it forward by continuously having those rallies and pushing them to the edge without actually telling them to do something, right? And he was not alone. There were a lot of folks involved in this, including some of the senators we saw yesterday. If anything, there's two things that really upset me. But the first point was, yesterday we should have been doing happy dances. We should have been shouting with joy. What you did in Georgia was amazing. Think about it. An African American and a Jewish senator from a very conservative state. I mean, unbelievable, right? Who would have thought this could happen? And it did. And instead of singing songs of joy, we're running to our whatever media outlet we utilize and watching in horror as the Capitol building was being attacked. And when they attacked the Capitol building, what was clear to me was not only were they attacking the symbol of the building and what it stands for, but they were attacking democracy itself. Because by attacking the building, by I don't know, breaching the walls. I mean, some of the stuff I read, Lord, it really, they were saying that our democracy and our Constitution don't count, that they don't believe in the separation of powers, and that they don't value that, which is, I think we need a, at the risk of sounding authoritarian, I think we need a serious re-education campaign and maybe some camps. But anyway, that's just being facetious, because it's really very serious. There has been a lot of, I thought there was a lot of purposeful disingenuity. There's a lot of questions. There's a lot of things we don't know. Who opened doors? Were the Capitol Police so angry over defund the police messages that they chose to help? Were they really terrified? I don't know. I don't know. It looks funny. There were no Department of Homeland Security people on the ground. It took how long for the National Guard to be, deployed? If ever there was a moment where DC could have utilized being a state, that was one of them, because the mayor could do nothing, no matter how hard she tried. But what was really striking to me is we knew this was going to possibly happen, and they weren't prepared, and they didn't go far enough. So that raises a lot of questions in and of itself. But those are bureaucratic issues. The bigger thing, and what I think we need to hang on to, and what I love about Andrea's attitude, because we talked obviously, oh my God, is that because of the work you're doing and these democracy centers we're about to do, and this, the one thing we were worried about was voter suppression, and we overcame it. You overcame it with all your good work. And you demonstrated with the numbers that it was possible. And people who had never voted before, or who hadn't voted in decades because it was so difficult, you helped them. And that's what's going to keep us moving forward. If anything, if I've come out with anything, it's not fear. I'm pissed. And when I get pissed, I get organized. And I hope each and every one of us think about that. Let's be organized. Let's continue with this work, because doing it once is great and it's amazing, but it sets sustainability. And so I'm committed to continuing my work with you, with Andrea, Center for Common Ground, Reclaim Our Vote, RVG, all the partners, all of you, because it's important. When I first started this way back in the 90s, and I used to say this, that democracy was, it was like a river. It has to flow. If it doesn't flow, if you dam it up, it can cause a lot of damage. It can cause floods. It can do things that are unexpected, or it can dry up. And so this is like keeping that river flowing. This is about removing all the bad stuff to ensure that we can move with it. And I have a lot of hope, and I'm ready to keep going. I hope you are too. I think your wins justify what I just said. The fact that you won and that you did it in such a beautiful, gracious way, and you helped people empower themselves by providing them with the tools that they needed, and the voting plans. All of you helped them with voting plans. Like, who would have thought? We all do this. This is what we do. We go vote. I get excited when I vote. I can't wait to get my sticker. Not everybody's like that. And I think that what you've done is to help folks see that again, and see that they themselves can control their future. So thank you. I will continue to watch over. I know there's a lot of discussion right now I know that today Schumer and Pelosi and a number of members of Congress have requested for the 25th Amendment to remove Trump immediately. That requires the cabinet. But what we're seeing is a lot of exit of Trump staff and other administration staff. Secretary Chow was the big one, being that she's Mitch McConnell's wife. It's significant. These are significant losses for the president. I think he's become increasingly isolated, or at least it's what it looks like on the outside, because I'm not on the inside. I'm actually going to get on a call after this with Pelosi and hear what she has to say to us. And I'm going to keep tracking it, and whatever I can share, I will share, because transparency is the best way. Shining a light is going to get rid of all this nastiness. So thank you. And I hand it back over to my beautiful executive director, CEO, whatever title she wants to give herself, the voting guru. Andrea Miller, it's all yours.
Thank you so much, Gabby. Reverend Terrence Dix of the Richmond County Board of Elections has joined us. And I've got to give major props to Terrence because when he originally was talking to me about going into Georgia back in late 2019, early 2020, the great state of Georgia was originally not on our list of target states. So, Terrence, you want to tell us a little bit about Georgia from the official election standpoint? The last time you were with us, you got to talk about another baseless lawsuit. So you can tell us whatever you want about the Georgia election, or you can just go, thank you, whatever you
Well,
want to do.
well, number one, Andrea, I just want to say to you and to the group, first of all, this on behalf of the state of Georgia, on behalf of the progressive movement inside of Georgia, on behalf of people in the grassroots, it took the nation to do it, and you all showed the nation the way. I just want to tell you that. And I'm not saying that to say it, I'm saying it because it's true. Andrea, I thank you for your personal vision and dedication. Whether it was in Alabama, Virginia, North Carolina, it didn't matter. You always were never afraid to look at the South, even when there were people who wouldn't listen to you and I, and when they just wanted to say, well, you just can't do anything with the South. It'll never change. There's nothing you can do. There are a lot of people a lot smarter than you and me who tried and failed, tried and died. And so, having said all that, all I know is one thing. Being an old itinerant black preacher, I tell people all the time, I only know one thing, and that is stay in your lane, do what you know to be right, and fight evil. and every once in a while, you're going to prevail over it. And I don't know, but according to my watch and my calendar, just for today, we have done so. Okay. Now, as to that nonsense and foolishness that happened in Washington, D.C., well, I'll let the FBI, the Justice Department, and others sort that out. Okay. Because that's coming. Okay. And all I can say is I'm glad they all got out of there before the brothers got angry in D.C. that night and came and did their little hunting routine. So, having said all that, okay, I'm just going to say this, that why was it important that groups like ours were on the ground, participating, phone banking, postcarding? Why was this important? This was important for a very major reason. Governor Brian Kemp, Secretary of State Raffensperger, and our Georgia State Legislature, which is heavily red, heavily conservative, needed to know that the whole world was watching. And they were watching the scale in which they always put their thumb on, and have done so routinely since 2000. And since 2000, they've been doing that. Or 2002, when David Perdue's cousin, Sonny Perdue, became governor. But that's okay, though, because, Andrea, what you would not recall and what you would not remember is that the late Joseph Eccles Lowry and I and a group of us were up in Atlanta fighting to get that the old flag of Northern Virginia, and send it back to y'all in Virginia off of our flag. So that's where it all began. So I just want to say to you, from the point of view of, there were a number of things that had to do before we could get to that vote, before we could get to that registration number that we had needed to get to. A political scientist had explained to us that in order to prevail in the runoff, which Democrats never, ever, ever, ever defeated the Republicans on. And it wasn't just the machines either, ladies and gentlemen. It was the what do you call it? It was the well, just the machines. It was It was a number of factors, but I'm just going to be honest with you. The bottom line was that we just did not have the organization. We didn't have the unity, but I think that because we proved in November that people were willing to get up, were willing to do what needed to be done, because in response to 2018, when Stacey Abrams sought the governorship, and our governor, again, Brian Kemp, refused to recuse himself because he was in fact the official holder of the votes, for lack of a better term. So let's be clear, ladies and gentlemen. When people know you're watching, people's behaviors change. And so with everybody watching, those 2 seats come up. And by the way, the reason why we had 2 seats instead of 1 this time was because our president, our present president, so wore out decent folk or semi-decent folk in the Senate that they just had to go for the exits because they couldn't take it anymore. They physically couldn't stomach it. So we ended up with an early retirement. We ended up with another guy whose time was up. So what we did was, for whatever reason, Stacey, and I give her so much credit for this, her timing was incredible and impeccable, and she kept going around telling people, if you just give us the chance. And she and Natasha and of course even Andrea, you were part of those discussions, that Georgia, it's Georgia's time. And so, ladies and gentlemen, for short, Georgia ended up on everybody's mind. Was it a long shot? Sure it was. But on the other hand, I'll be honest with you, in November, we came to an understanding, and it was this. All of my life, since I was a young boy, we always had the Joseph Lowrys. We always had the C.T. Vivians. We always had the John Lewises there for us. And so when these men left us, we understood that they had left their work not undone, and that we had to build on that. So it makes a difference, Andrea, when we have that to build on. And of course, Andrea, your work was most important, because you and I had this discussion, and we even wrote it down, that we were going to have a progressive Southern strategy. We wrote this stuff years ago. You and I, we put the stuff together, and we worked it.
2010.
Sorry, 2010, and we worked it. Yes, ma'am. And by 2020, we were able to work it and implement it. So again, we made the country understand, you do not want the Southernization of America. We want Americanization in the South. And that's what Georgia did. That's what Virginia did. Okay? Alabama and North Carolina for a couple of minutes did. And they will again, as will Mississippi and Texas. Okay? So let's be clear, ladies and gentlemen. Our work tonight, let us take just this moment to be blessed and to rest. But we have a journey to complete. Okay? In the words of Dr. Martin Luther King, hey, I can't get there with you, but together, one day we will get there, and we're getting ever closer. And I'm so proud that Raphael and John have taken that spirit to their heart, and they're taking it to Washington. They're not sitting on it in Georgia. Okay? They're taking it with them when they go. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, keep in mind, Andrea, the calendar, that John's going to get 5 years in the Senate. Raphael has 2 right now, and he's got to run again. I think I don't know if it'll be 2022, 2023. I'm not sure.
He's 2022.
Is he 2020? Okay, good.
Yep.
Well, I rely on you to keep that calendar up. Not me. Not me. You keep it up. I just have to go and fight that stuff. But even with the lawsuits and even trying to tear down our Capitol, which, by the way, democracy and liberty cannot protect themselves. But I'll tell you what, they know we're out there and they know we're watching and we're praying and we're doing what we need to do. So, Andrea, I just want to say to the gang again, and also to Gabrielle, who, by the way, made it impossible for me even to say half of what I've just said right now, because her rap on what was going on was just absolutely spot on. So I just want to say to everybody, I just want to thank all of you again. And I'm telling you, Andrea, I'm saying it to you right now, I'm not going to rest until we get the democracy centers where the people need them and where the people are going to use them. And that's what we've got to do. And we got to teach them. That's why we had what we had yesterday, because people don't understand where it came from, what it represents. They would never have desecrated that if they had but known. So we've got a lot to do, ladies and gentlemen. And I just want to tell y'all, and if Georgia can do it, and Lord knows, Andrea knows, because Andrea used to work here and do in different capacities, and you know the deal. So I'm just saying, look at where we have come from by the grace of God. Look at where we've come from. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, I just want to thank you all so much. And Andrea, thank you for never losing the faith in us. Okay. God bless you and keep you. And thank you so much. And I'm gonna try to stay on the call for as long as I can. Okay.
All right. That's
Thank
great.
you. Okay.
All right.
Peace. All right now.
Peace out. Take care, Terrence. So, Ray, unmute. Ray McClendon, our partner in Atlanta, Georgia, the Atlanta NAACP. Ray, you got the floor.
Thanks so much, Andrea. And first of all, this is a great honor and pleasure. I tell you, one of the joys of our year in 2020 was to meet Andrea in the Center for Common Ground and Reclaim Our Vote in the midst of what we were trying to accomplish in Georgia. The Atlanta NAACP have made a decision that we were going to expand our efforts beyond the metro Atlanta area and really focus on the needs of collaborating with NAACP chapters and others around the state. And this was a part of an effort that many of us that were involved in grassroots get out the vote efforts over the last several election cycles were coming more and more in touch with one another and coalescing around the idea that we would be much more efficient and effective if we worked together, communicated together, collaborated together. So this was not an overnight success. This was several years, even prior to the 2016 elections, when different people from around the state decided that, you know what, we need to have all of these various groups, whether it be the NAACP, Urban League, 100 Black Men, 100 Black Women, the Masons, the Divine Nine, and all of the fraternities and sororities. All of those groups were doing different things. And what we had found out was that, you know, some Saturdays we would be out doing voter registrations, and we'd have the NAACP on one corner in a Walmart shopping center, and then we'd have a church in another area of the shopping center. We'd have various groups, and we're all there with resources trying to register 15 or 20 people. And so over the course of the last 4 years, we started coalescing around common interests and common attributes that each one of the organizations had. We did a little bit better after the 2016 election when when we saw that Trump won by 211,000 votes in Georgia, and then we get up to Stacey, when she won by 55,000, lost by 55,000 votes, even on the face of voter purges of over 330,000 votes. And so coming into the next cycle in 2020, we said that we must collaborate better. And we decided in the NAACP Atlanta that we would coordinate with all of those groups that I just talked about and build a statewide coalition in order to be key influencers to do grassroots work around the state. And so we were trying to do, all things at once, trying to run the organizations, do strategy, create back office IT, do phone bank lists and use antiquated systems and so forth. And we were doing the best we could. And then of course, by chance we meet Andrea. And Andrea was like an angel sent to us from heaven that brought the infrastructure that we needed, so that instead of us having to spend our time trying to reinvent the wheel, we could come in and have an infrastructure where we could scale across multiple get out the vote contact points like never before. So instead of me, and I'm just know enough about IT to be dangerous, instead of me trying to figure out how to build a tech system, or the president of the Atlanta NAACP trying to figure out how to create the best filters out of the VAN system, or trying to put together a postcard campaign, we could come to Andrea and use that infrastructure, that scalability, and all of those volunteers that she's already created, and be on top of that system and use our time to really reach out in the community and touch the voters. See, in the Black community in Georgia, you need to touch voters. All of this money that was being spent on TV ads and so forth, to hundreds of millions of dollars, people were numb to that. What really made the difference was the ability to be able to touch voters on a day-to-day basis. And we were able to do that with many, many thanks to what Andrea and what you all are doing was able to provide us with a tremendous resource. So we are grateful to that. The Black vote in Georgia made a tremendous difference. The other thing that it allowed us to do was not just generic scale, but it was the ability to be strategically focused. And what I tell you what I mean by that, there's so many people that got 5, 10, 15, 20 calls. They got 5 postcards. They got, they were inundated. And I use the story about my wife and I, who have not missed the election in the last 5 years, my wife even longer than that. The point of it is that we would be considered super voters. So why are we getting 10 calls? Why are we getting all of these postcards? The great thing about what we could do with the Center for Common Ground and Reclaim Our Vote is that we could create the right kind of filters so that we could target voters, those low and moderate income, low and moderate propensity voters, and really be able to get to the people that we needed to encourage to get out to vote. And that made a tremendous difference. So we are just grateful to be able to be in this partnership. We were able to leverage it across all our systems so that when we got people in Southwest Georgia who didn't have the resources to go out and do a phone bank targeted to systems, I could call Gabe and say to Gabe, hey, can you create something for me for Southwest Georgia? Or can you create something? We knew that we needed to target certain city of Atlanta precincts that voted less than 50%. Gabe could build that for us. So those are the kind of things that allow you to micro target and really focus on voters in a way that would have taken us weeks to do, but more importantly, it would have taken us and our strategic importance to the mission off the table. So we're just so grateful to have this newfound partnership. We're so grateful for how all of this technology really takes us to another level, and we can distribute that by the grace that Andrea has given us to be able to share in this. And so it really did make a difference because we were all in those counties. Final piece on that is that strategically then we could all concentrate on where we could be effective. We could join in with others that communication worked because I didn't have to be in Southwest Georgia. I knew we had a partner. All I needed to do was get on the phone with them on their Zoom call, find out what they were doing and say, here's how I can support you. But I don't need to deploy my resources there and vice versa. So that was a great, great way that we were much more effective and much more efficient than we ever were. And then finally, we talk about where we are now. We have rejoiced in the victory. We're basking in it. We're so grateful for it, but we know that there's work to be done. Because we were so successful in the early voting and the absentee balloting in Georgia, there are already bills being drafted that would dramatically change the way we have absentee ballot voting in Georgia. The legislature will start in the next week and maybe this coming Monday or at a minimum the Monday after that. And so we know that we have to go back to work. So all of the other components of what the Center for Common Ground has available at like petitions, letter writing campaigns, et cetera, those will become the 365-day-a-year components of us staying vigilant in the fight. This is not just a GOTV effort now. This is a year-round effort, and having this kind of partnership will allow us to be in the game and helping to deal with policy matters in the state legislature going forward. So we see this as a great long-term partnership. We're just so grateful that we found this. We thankful for the dedication, the leadership, and we're all on the same side of history, and we're just grateful to be a part of it. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Ray. And you led me into where we are going next. Now, people who have been on some of the last Zoom calls, you've heard me talk about democracy centers. In 2021, we are planning on opening up 40 of these in our voter suppression states. There's going to be multiple ones in different states. It's not like we're considering 40 states voter suppression states, but we're going to open 40 of them in voter suppression states. Texas is a country, so one democracy center in Texas isn't going to do it. While Georgia is in Texas, one democracy center in Georgia isn't going to do it either. So we're going to be looking to locate these in rural areas, in low-income urban areas, on Indian reservations. We're going to be looking to go to places where we know voters have been not only suppressed, but also oppressed. And we're basically going to bring four things. We're going to work with them on voting rights, ensure that they're going to be able to vote when elections come up. We're going to work with them on community wealth building because many of these communities are low income. Imagine that they're suppressing your vote, you're oppressed, and you're low income. Wow, didn't see that one coming. We're also going to be working with them on energy, democracy, and resiliency. So I had an opportunity to see a map that showed the United States, and it showed where the greatest levels of poverty were. And in many of those same places, these were places where people had rural electric cooperatives that were literally ripping them off. So we're going to have an opportunity to look at things like that. And then ultimately, we're going to be working on power building so that we end up with something like our very first democracy center in Hawkinsville, Georgia. Julius is here tonight. So there's the team in Hawkinsville. They opened their doors on December 21st, and a huge shout out to the crew of the RVG who called me relentlessly saying, you've got to meet this guy, Julius Johnston, and you've got to put a democracy center in Hawkinsville. Another huge shout out to Steve Rosenfeld, who said, you've got to meet this guy, Julius Johnson, and you've got to put a democracy center or whatever you're talking about doing. You got to do one in Hawkinsville. Now, they opened on December 21st. I want you to count the number of people in that picture. That is the crew, okay? That's them. They knocked on 1,911 doors from December 21st through January 4th. And they canvassed, talked to, had conversations with 1,776 people. That is what democracy centers can do in an election. And when there is not an election, then they will be a host site for programs like this when people can get together. Because even though they're in rural Georgia, they've got internet. So we can bring programming into their location. And they will be able to identify what's important to their community, and then they'll be able to advocate for it. Now, 2021 legislative priorities. So democracy centers are in state, the local ones. However, any group, and we've got many groups that are on this call tonight that support the legislative priorities that we have, we are going to be more than happy to train you on looking at legislation and how to effectively go in and advocate slash educate. Actually, I'm going to say educate and then agitate for whatever it is that we want to do. One of the first things that we are going to work on is the For the People Act by John Sarbanes, otherwise known as HR 1. That bill was introduced on January 4th. So we do currently have that bill. We are also going to be supporting the Voting Rights Advancement Act by Terry Sewell and Pat Leahy. The Pat Leahy part is really, really important because Pat will now be chair of the Senate Judiciary Committee, which means if the House passes this bill again, that bill will now get a vote in the United States Senate. We will also be working with DC statehood, and that's Eleanor Holmes Norton and again, Pat Leahy. It is ridiculous that the city of Washington, DC, they used to call it a chocolate city because of the large number of brown people that lived there. More than 700,000 people living in the city. And while they can vote for president and they do have a representative, their representative doesn't have a vote that counts. Well, if you've got a representative and when they vote, they don't count it, you don't have a representative. So DC should really be a state. And if DC had been a state, Muriel Bowser on her own could have deployed the National Guard. We are waiting for Representative Mark Pocan to reintroduce his bill, the constitutional right to vote. I got excited when I looked today in the Congress.gov and saw there was another constitutional right to vote bill, but it was a bad bill. This bill exempted people who had felony convictions. So one of the things that we will do here is we will compare bills and make sure we are advocating for the best version of the bill, not just a version. And of course, at the federal, state, and local level, we will be supporting other bills that come up that support economic, social, and racial justice. Now, as Ray said, we are going to have a bill that we're going to need to oppose very, very shortly in Georgia when the Georgia legislature introduces a bill that will probably require vote by mail to people must have an excuse. So instead of the no excuse vote by mail, which they have now, people will need to have a valid excuse from a list of whatever the legislature decides is a valid excuse. So that means we will be working with on the ground partners, teaching them how to use the advocacy tools to put together a petition, to build their list, to do major outreach to everybody that they currently know around the state, and to then add to it. I'll be working with national partners, letting the national partners know that this is going on in Georgia, and we're going to need the national partners, all who have more than 5 million people on their list, to activate their folks in Georgia and let them know this is coming along. So this is where we're going. And we are going to have some elections in 2021. Virginia will have her statewide elections, governor, lieutenant governor, and attorney general, and the entire Virginia State House will be up for reelection come November. Our primary will be in June. So we will be looking at other states, looking to see what they have available. Our marvelous Students for Justice are going to be looking to support some of these very small local races like rural electric cooperatives, because there is major social and economic injustice being done in many of these rural communities. And they will also be working with our other board member, Deepak, to learn more digital tools and then be able to teach organizations and campaigns how to use these tools. So we have huge plans for 2021. So while most of them will not be electoral, we will now do the most important part about voting. Once you get the butt in the seat, hold it accountable and make sure they do what they said they were going to do, and have standards. These are the bills, these are the ideals that we want for our community. And if they don't live up to them, when that next election comes around, and local communities have learned how to use VAN or PDI or whatever it is we're going to be using, maybe they come up with a candidate of their own to run against the kind of, it says it's a D, so whatever, that's what we're going to put up. And that's really what we're looking at. Well, not only in the South, that happens everywhere. So Virginia is going to be working on trying to clean her house in 2021 as well. We may have we weren't expecting anything quite this fast, an opportunity to do some legislative advocacy, because all the big groups are now circulating their petitions on impeach and invoke the 25th Amendment. So we're going to be taking a look at that and figuring out, is this something we want to do coming off a bruising election? Are we going to have the strength to do that? So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. We're going to be running a little bit late. Nancy and rest of my team, are there any pressing questions that you've seen in the chat that I need to grab?
We have someone from Louisiana wondering about a democracy
Hey,
center
Robert.
there.
I know, Robert Damaris Sullivan. I saw you. Yeah. Yes, Robert.
He wants a democracy center.
We'll talk. We'll talk. You're not slated on our list, and that was because we didn't really have anybody to work with down in Louisiana. But the second congressional district is having a special election because Cedric Richmond is going to the Biden administration.
Oh, right.
Yes.
And
Yes.
we also have, I think it's Stephanie from Indiana, wondered if you would be open to a democracy center there. Maybe you could talk about the difference between democracy centers and affiliates as well.
Well, anybody can have a democracy center, any church, any group, and you can say, we want to keep working on, rather than reclaim our vote issues, because those are predominantly electoral, Center for Common Ground issues. And then we'll be doing probably weekly trainings on various bills, on how to advocate, on how to use the tools, how to use Action Network, because all the big federal stuff we will build for you, and then you will just need to share it. But when it comes to local things, then it would be really great if you could at least start building it on your own, and then we would help you with the final things. So that could be certainly a possibility, because I know in Indiana, there's a whole bunch of stuff you're going to need to be advocating for on the local level. And when we start talking about federal legislation, we need 218 votes to pass anything in the House, and we still need 60 votes to pass things in the Senate. So those are big numbers, and that means we're going to need people literally in every city, county in the United States working on their representatives and their senators to either co-sponsor the bill, vote for the bill in committee and when it goes to the floor. And in some instances, we may actually have to write the bill. Yes, and the National Popular Vote Compact, yes. The National Popular Vote Compact basically says, in a nutshell, that if states who have the equivalent of 270 electoral votes all agree that they want to directly elect the president, then that's the end of the Electoral College. It's an agreement between the states that we're going to elect the president directly. So I believe we are something like 74 electoral votes short. Virginia will not be bringing a bill this year because it's short session, but we will be bringing the bill in 2022 because that comes in my working group. So yes, yeah, we definitely support that. And that will be state legislation. So yes, we're going to start with federal. Georgia is state, but it'll be immediate. And then, yes, we will definitely look at what states still need to pass the National Vote Compact, the National Popular Vote Compact. Yes.
There's questions about how to organize, like with our phone bankings, or there's a question for Ray. How would we coordinate with other groups when you're doing phone banking? I know maybe you could talk a little bit about what's allowed in terms of coordinating with other groups. have work?
Well, Ray and I, we are both 501c3s, so we've got the same rule. As long as the other groups are using our scripts, we can work together. The moment they want to start advocating directly for candidates, whoa, that's where we have to stop and say, you've got to stay over there in your lane. So yes, that's really the main thing. All the work that we do, even on the legislative side, must be nonpartisan. So one of the things you're going to see about when we do a petition is we're never going to put the bill number on it. You're going, well, why isn't the bill number there? Because of the 501c3. It's considered educating if I name the bill, but lobbying if I put the bill number on it. I didn't make up the rules. I'm just stuck trying to explain it.
And from strategic and tactical points of view, what we learned is that we need to share information on who we're targeting. There were, as I alluded to, there are different groups who were targeting rural voters. There were others that were targeting metro voters. There were groups that were going after low propensity voters, et cetera. The problem is that when we don't communicate, that's how you get this high level of redundancy. So again, being effective means all of the major players should get together and understand, okay, what is your objective? What's ours? How can we cross-reference our platforms so that we are optimizing who our targets are? And then when you use a great system like what Andrea has built, then you ensure that you get through the entire list of however many thousands of voters there are before you get into duplication. And duplication is the thing that frustrated a lot of voters. I can't tell you how many people were called 10, 12 times. And that's because people are working off lists, and a lot of times they're starting at the very beginning of the list over and over again. So our coordination strategically makes sense, and then tactically, when you employ it and people are working off similar tools or infrastructure, then it'll make sure that we'll be more effective going forward. So again, it goes back to collaboration and communication.
There's a question too, Andrea, about postcarding in Virginia. Who will our targets be? Will they be purge voters and then moving to get out the vote?
Yes, we will do the standard purged voters in Virginia. And then we will immediately turn and we will do selective very targeted GOTV in the primary. There is a possibility we have, again, you're going to love Virginia. In Virginia, there are no campaign finance rules. So any company, any individual can give an elected official an unlimited amount of money. So we are targeting a specific Black delegate who is not only funded by Dominion Energy, kind of our Snively whiplash of really bad investor-owned utilities, but he's also funded by the Koch brothers. So there is a wonderful friend of mine, pipeline fighter, returning citizen, who has built a 501c3 that trains returning citizens how to install and maintain solar. Richard has decided to run against this fellow. So again, we have to be nonpartisan, but it's a state house district. There's only 57,000 voters. In the last big primary, only 10,000 people voted. So it'll be a turnout battle. And I love turnout battles.
And I know Ilza posted the link to sign up as a volunteer. And just a reminder, we will send out an email with links.
Betsy DeVos has just resigned. The rats are deserting the sinking ship.
Oh my God.
Yes.
Now that
Yes.
she got pardons for her brother's lackeys in Iraq, the Blackwater Guards. She can,
Oh,
that's
yes.
huge.
I
Yeah,
saw
yeah.
it at the same time you did, Andrea.
Oh, all right. We can celebrate that. Yes.
And Nancy Pelosi has her call right now to her little.
Yep. Yep.
Hey,
So
Papa.
Gabby had to pop over to that. So yeah.
But we will send out something with all the links to sign up to volunteer. And again, as Andrea said, we're not going to be working on elections right away, and we're not doing phone banking and postcarding and texting right yet. We're moving more.
Right, but there may be a slew of petitions coming at you right away.
So get on our list.
And it's kind of far away, but thank you to my ROV team. It came yesterday. Look behind me. Look on my
Oh, yes. That's what's my virtual one too, Andrea, but mine looks backwards, my virtual background.
No, it's fine. It's working. It's
I
working.
forget Louise to turn it around. Evelyn, Maybelline Hall raised her hand. I didn't see that.
Oh, okay.
Evelyn?
Oh, hang on. All right. There you go, Evelyn. You can unmute. Right. I'm asking you to unmute, Evelyn. I can't unmute you. Or Evelyn, put it in the chat. Evelyn might be multitasking.
Yes, okay. Keep an eye out on
Oh,
her.
there she is. Yes.